stinky food to bare feet.
The opinions that we're about to share, they are our opinions alone.
Watching Instagram videos out loud, listening to this podcast out loud, apparently frustrates people. I cannot believe how many responses in this poll had to do with feet.
Feet.
Most of us have two. And you know, put shoes on when you go fly. Don't wear flip-flops. I love flip-flops. It's hard for me to even say that. But wear shoes.
If you're on the window seat and you full arm the armrest,
It's an act of war.
bing,
Double chime.
bing, double chime. Like if you and I were flying and you were on the window, I'd be like, do you mind if we close it? And you would protest
Probably.
it.
Yeah, probably.
I play a lot of golf. Sometimes I go 105% and my back hurts.
I may have pushed that one a little hard.
You were tight.
Apparently the gentleman behind me didn't like that. He was reading a newspaper. He rolled it up and whacked me in the head with it while we were flying. It was pretty funny.
All right, folks, welcome back to the From the Flight Deck podcast. So first, acknowledge that it's been quite some time, and specifically, it's been about 6 months, actually, since the last podcast episode was uploaded, and that was actually in the wake of the Washington, D.C. accident. So lots of information has come out since then, and it's kind of been out of the news cycle in all reality. But what I want to focus on here is there's been a lot of changes that have happened, both for me personally, really more in a professional setting. But also in the dial-up pilot world, we've just found a lot. We found a lot of things to start to focus in on more. And one of those things is a change in the podcast, just a little bit. And the elephant in the room here is if you're watching the video, you're looking at this guy you've never seen on the podcast before. Well, this guy, his name is Christian Smith. Christian and I actually met the first day of our freshman year at the University of North Dakota. And he took me under his arm, this little California kid riding a longboard around on all these roads that had been cracked up by all the ice and all of those sort of things, riding around North Dakota. And you being from Michigan, we're like, okay, I'll keep this kid safe and make sure that he can survive this North Dakota winter. So Christian has been, he's got a very unique position that he's bringing to this podcast, which is awesome. And we're going to get into that here in a minute. But Christian's been on the background at Dial-Up Pilot since the day I started it. I talked to Christian on the phone, no kidding, for I would say at least half an hour, pretty much every single day, oftentimes more than that, as we work our way through our lives, both professionally and personally, and supporting one another. So I'm really grateful to have you on the podcast. This is going to be a frequent thing. We'll talk about where Joey is here in just a little bit as well, and what he's doing. But Christian, welcome to the From the Flight Deck podcast.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate you having me join, and looking forward to spending some time on the microphone and in front of the camera talking about all things aviation the next couple of months.
Absolutely. Which brings me to a great point here and why you're such a unique fit for this Dial-Up Pilot podcast. One, we talk all the time anyways, and so it's just natural to have you on the show here. But one of the important things is that our No Fear Flight Club member, one of our No Fear Flight Club members brought up to me is the fact that when she listens to the podcast, one of the things that sometimes happens, and Joey and I tried to fight this off as much as we could, but being airline pilots, we would get really technical sometimes. We try to fight that off and try and back it off a little bit. But you've got such a unique position because you are a professional pilot. You trained at the University of North Dakota just like I did. And then you went the entrepreneurial route in your career for quite some time and have since jumped back into professional flying as a corporate pilot, flying smaller aircraft, but still turbines, jets, all of those things, which is amazing. But you've also got such a unique ability to share your passion for aviation, which runs so incredibly deep. I mean, how many years have you gone to the Oshkosh Air Show in a row?
I think it's my 15th year.
So you got to, long time. So 15 years of going to this air show. But you can share that passion for aviation just so incredibly well. You do a lot of volunteering with the Experimental Aviation Association. You're helping them build a hangar here in Traverse City, Michigan. All of these different things that I'm just so excited because it's such a great way for me to reduce my technical jargon and you to help me translate that to somebody that maybe doesn't know exactly what I'm talking about. And, I can get a little bit lost in the weeds with that. So anything else you'd like to add on your background and kind of what you've done over the last 10 years since we left college?
Yeah. So I've spent some time in the startup space. Mainly, first one was an aviation-based startup in the drone world, doing a lot of inspection work. We've moved into some other automated inspection and machinery, business now. But I took up flying again. It took a little bit of time off. So doing some flight instructing on the side, which is a really unique way to share that passion for aviation. For the many years I've been flying, I started flying as an 8th grader in my hometown. So I've been behind the controls of an airplane almost half my life now, which has been fun. And then also, like Kyle mentioned, doing some professional flying in the corporate world, flying a little airplane called TBM and a King Air, which has been a great time to really fly the skies professionally, not in the airline space, but still being able to do the aviation thing. And then my other part-time background job, interestingly enough, is in the air show world. So I'm an air show director for a pretty big air show in Traverse City, Michigan, and then do some work with the Air Venture Air Show in Oshkosh as well. So spend a lot of time in the aviation space. So really looking forward to be able to share that passion and experience with you guys and from the Flight Deck podcast and with the Dial Pilot community.
Absolutely. Well, again, we're so glad you're here. And one of the things I do want to point out here is we absolutely love Joey. He's still one of our best friends. He's just he's so committed to what he does, and he shares it in a little bit different of a way where the airline that he works for, he's doing a lot of recruiting and things like that take up a lot of his free time. And obviously as a newly married guy as well, he's doing a lot of trips and all sorts of fun stuff with his wife. So Joey's time commitments have just made it so that he is focused a little bit more on kind of the airline side of things and, trying to balance airline schedules and trying to get us both on the phone at times that we're both home with the equipment that we need. Has just been a little bit on the challenging side. So Joey will still be coming on. He'll still be talking with us, and he's still very much a member of our team and our group. And we absolutely love Joey. And, I'm so proud of all the things that I've watched him do in his career. He's just an amazing person who's such an amazing advocate for aviation. As you and I have seen, and when we went up to North Dakota many times, as soon as that guy starts speaking, you can hear a pin drop in the room. I mean, he just commands the room. He's got that amazing presence. So we absolutely love Joey, and he certainly will be back on the podcast as well. But Christian is, I would call you the co-host at this point, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's an exciting new title in my life.
Yeah, there you go. So exciting stuff. But anyways, that kind of leads me into, we've talked about you over the last 10 years. We've talked about Joey over the last 6 months a little bit. And I've had quite a bit of changes in the last 6 months as well, and changing my position at the airline that I work for. And that's been pretty exciting.
Yeah. So I would like you to start off by telling us a little bit more about where you've been recently on your professional side of the business. So at the airline, and then maybe we can get a little bit more about the state of Dial Pilot and where that's headed.
Yeah, absolutely. So back in December of 24, I had flown. So I was flying the international fleet at that time. And the international fleet was great. The time off was amazing. I was going to all these really cool places: Taipei, Shanghai, London, Frankfurt, all these really special places. I love London. London is one of my favorite towns in the world. But I had realized that I was just kind of missing actually flying the airplane. Because when you're doing that international stuff, you take off, you cruise around for 12, 14, 15 hours, something like that. And then you land and you're in this amazing city. And then 24 hours, you come back. And I was just finding that I really missed flying the airplane into places like Des Moines and San Luis Obispo, California, and Newark, New Jersey, which is hilarious to say that. But all of these places that I just missed the kind of domestic side of things and the lots of takeoffs and landings and kind of being in the action. What happens in the international world, rightfully so, because we have all these slot times that we need to make, and all of that is all of these issues that start to arise, they're all handled for you. And so you get on the airplane and make sure your crew meals are on board and off you go, which is great. The quality of life is amazing. And the frequency of issues and things to deal with is just so minor from what we see in the domestic system, where the domestic system is a lot more change happening and decisions that need to be made and kind of advocacy from the flight deck on what's happening. And I found myself missing that, which was kind of unique. And so I was flying a domestic trip on the international fleet in December, and we were going back and forth between places like Chicago and Orlando and things like that. And I was flying with this amazing captain who really has become a mentor to me. And he's got this incredible story. He's got a PhD. I mean, one of those guys that you fly with and you're like, the layers just don't stop with him. Like, okay, that's cool. You have a master's. Oh, you also have a PhD in applied astrophysics. I can't even remember if that's what it was, but it was something like that. I'm like, this guy is just amazing. And so I was telling him, I'm like, man, I miss the domestic stuff. I'm so glad to be doing this trip. And at that time, we had an opportunity for me to put my bid in to go to captain. And he kind of had this heart to heart with me that was like, you're going to take a schedule hit. This is going to be more challenging for you as far as days off, and you're not going to be able to play golf as much and all of those things. But you need to do this. Like, you need to go be a captain. You need to have this time in your career, and this is the time to do it. And I just completely agreed with him. I'm like, it's what I needed to hear. You're absolutely right. So I put my bid in, and about a week later, that bid closed, and I was awarded captain on the Airbus 320, which has been awesome. So I went to training in February for the leadership portion of the school. And then I went to Airbus training in March. And that training is about 30 days. We've talked all about training before, but I hit the line in April and have been flying as a captain since then, which has been such an amazing opportunity. And it's so much fun to have achieved kind of the dream that we set out for since the time that we went to North Dakota, and even before that in all reality. But I had an emotional moment. I actually flew the Airbus as a captain back into San Luis Obispo, which is where my professional career started. It was the first place I was a flight instructor. It was the first place I flew a jet to be paid for it. And it was cool to go back in there and to be able to fly in as a captain and taxi into the terminal that I had watched them build and see the flight school that I had been an instructor at. I'm like, man, this is a really cool full circle moment. And fortunately, it was actually lining up to be my first officer's leg, and it was raining during the walk around. And I was like, all right, I'll make a trade for you. They're with you. I'll get your walk around here since it's raining, but I have to take the leg into San Luis Obispo. And she was like, I'll take that deal.
Nice.
So we did a nice little arrangement there, which was cool. But yeah, so anyways, that's the long story of where I've been over the last 6 months. And I decided at that time to pull the podcast down for the time being, because this was the biggest training environment or the training event I had ever gone through. I've been through a lot of type ratings, 5 or 6 at this point. I can't even remember, but I decided in going to this captain position, I really, really needed to absolutely take all the noise away and make sure that I was exclusively focused on ensuring that I was going to be the best captain that I possibly could, learning the airplane to the best of my ability, and just taking in all of this information that was available. And so that's the reason we pulled the podcast down and have now started it back up. And you see our social media posts coming back. And it's been exciting to do that. It's been very fun. You have been a party to all of these conversations about what we're doing on the back end, which I'm of course happy to get into. But that again is the nature of where I've been. So I'm feeling settled into my seat now and in my routine, and I've kind of identified, who I am as a captain, and gotten comfortable in the Airbus. And so now I feel like, okay, we can start to kind of reintroduce things, and I'm not drinking water from the fire hose anymore.
Yeah. I think if we can just take one more second to focus on your time as a captain before we jump into a little bit more about the business, I would just like to take a second to identify the fact that, we have talked about you being a captain for a long time, and to actually watch you take that upgrade, take the seat, and do such a phenomenal job at it has been really rewarding for me as a best friend and as a fellow pilot with you. It's just been really incredible to watch you take that seat the exact way that I always expected you to. It's something that you've been destined for since you were a little kid. It's really exciting to be able to see that materialize. So congratulations, man. It's a really awesome thing.
You're going to make me all emotional. I appreciate that. It was really cool. It was another full circle moment was to be able to fly you on one of my,
I was going to make sure that came up.
Yeah. On one of my originating trips as a captain, we Christian came out to visit us in Sacramento area where we live, and where my wife, Maddie, and I live. And at the end of your trip, I was actually flying most of the way back to Traverse City, Michigan, where you live. And so you got to fly 2 legs with me, which was just so awesome. So it was fun to have you up there while we were doing the pre-flight and getting things ready, and have you see the briefing and meet the first officer I was flying with, Steph. What an amazing guy Steph is.
Love Steph.
I would love Steph.
Great guy.
Fantastic guy. And to be able to have you on board was pretty special. So it was
to sit in the back and just do the normal thing you do, which we're going to get into here shortly on some of those pet peeves with the airline and the airline world from the back of the airplane. But then to be unpacking, throw my iPad out there, get the AirPods out, and then to listen to you come over the PA. It's funny, as our wives know and our friends know, we spend a lot of time on the phone together. So I listen to Kyle through a microphone and a speaker often, and to hear it from a speaker, not on an iPhone, but through a PA on an Airbus A320 was really cool.
You're like, I know this guy.
Yeah, that's a voice I've heard thousands of hours in my life. And so to hear it in the airplane was really rewarding experience for me too, man. So that was awesome.
Yeah, that was cool. No, I'm glad we made that work. So, and obviously you've been a huge part of, I'm very much an external processor. And so you're the sounding board for that. And so when I started thinking about taking the upgrade, I think you had spent probably a good 2 hours on the phone with me. Just, is this the right decision? Which it certainly was. So yeah. I appreciate everything you've ever done for me as far as helping me make these decisions. And gosh, we could do a 3-hour podcast about that. But with that being said, it's been an awesome opportunity to move to that left seat. And then we've talked a lot about since then, okay, what are we going to do with Dial-A-Pilot now? What's the next maneuver that we make as far as what have we learned and what do people identify with? How can we make the biggest impact for nervous flyers? And yeah, it's been fantastic to do that as well.
Yeah, let's go ahead and dive in a little bit more on the business. So maybe we can start with just where your head was at in the very, very beginning, like how you started Dial-A-Pilot. What was that product offering that you thought was going to be really the successful path for Dial-A-Pilot in the beginning?
Absolutely. So as you remember, and as most folks listening to this have heard this story, it really started with this recognition that I had from numerous conversations I had, but the one that really stuck in my head was from my sister-in-law, who had just informed me of her fear of flying. And in my research and trying to help her understand or help her get over her fear and identify what products and solutions were out there, I realized there really wasn't a lot of opportunity to understand aviation through the perspective of a nervous flyer and through those eyes with somebody that's actually tied into the industry. And so she specifically was nervous about turbulence. That was always her thing. And so she would call me before most flights and say, hey, what's the turbulence look like today? And since there wasn't really a reliable source out there to find this, I thought, hey, if we just did 10-minute phone calls for people that they could call a pilot, ask their questions about turbulence, and then be on the way, that'd be fantastic. And so I thought we were going to just do a ton of volume with 10-minute phone calls. And the reality is, the first phone call we ever did, I did the first probably 200, 250 by myself. Every single one of them, I'm talking from the first one, was at least 30 minutes long. Yep. And I was teaching people about aviation and teaching them about Boeing and Airbus and the noises that they were hearing and why there's a sinking feeling after takeoff and what the chimes mean and all of these different things and who the dispatchers are, meaning what do they do, all of that. And we never really evolved the model for a long time, because I just thought, well, okay, the one-on-one calls and, we'll kind of see what happens here. And then we introduced a fear of flying course. That was in March of 2024. Yep. And that brought our community platform. And this platform is on what's called circle.so, which is this amazing platform. I mean, it's so powerful. It's just fantastic. And we did a fear of flying group course that was live at that point in time. And it was 4 calls. They were all led by me. And I taught things like air traffic control and what they do and what they're, how they contribute to the safety of aviation. I taught things like about your inner ear and why you may feel like you're having a tumbling sensation when the airplane starts to accelerate, or why that sinking feeling feels so upsetting. What is that? And then, of course, aircraft systems, turbulence was an entire day. And so we went through all of that. And at the end of that, about half of our members or half of the folks that took that course said, hey, can we keep these calls going on an ongoing basis? So I said, yeah, sure. So we started what we called office hours, and that's in the community. And then one of the things that we did that really changed the community dramatically was we introduced a group chat. And that group chat has taken this incredible life of its own. And we've seen people become really, really close friends on it. And I've made relationships with folks on there that are just amazing. I feel so personally tied into these people. And it's so much fun to run that. But that has always been the sounding board since really March of 2024 of kind of what we're doing next and what people like. And that's where I focus a ton of my attention in working with folks. So a little bit of a ramble for me on where we've started and kind of where we've gone, which is going to lead to the next thing. But anything I'm missing in there that you want to highlight?
No, I think that's a really good encapsulation where the business has been and kind of how you've gotten here. So those one-on-one calls still obviously a crucial part of the business, even though it started off like 10-minute focus on turbulence. That's still pretty much the core foundation of the business today, but then offering up that community platform where it's more of this ongoing support. So you still view those one-on-one calls and that community basis as a core part of the business moving forward?
Absolutely. And I think that ultimately we will change the structure of it a little bit. And what we've identified within the community, again, this all really comes from the community and from the one-on-one calls that we've done and talking to our pilot team about what we're seeing out there. What we've identified with a lot of our community members is, hey, the aviation education really, really helped. But I still am at the point where I'm feeling much more comfortable on the airplane. But once I'm on board and I'm starting to feel that anxiety, now what do I do?
Yep.
And for the longest time, I hesitated away from that because I was like, we are not mental health professionals. That is not our job. I just wanted absolutely no liability associated with that because I didn't feel like it was appropriate for me to come forth with education on that. And then I realized, actually, as I was going through a briefing one day, when we were talking about emergency procedures and what we do in the event of a rejected takeoff and how I brief that, I was in the middle of my briefing and it hit me. And I'm like, I brief this so that in the moment that something like this happens, the moment that the unexpected occurs throughout my entire career, I may never do this, or I may do it once, a rejected takeoff. But the reason I do that is to mentally prepare myself so that I have a plan and I know exactly how I'm going to handle this situation. And I kind of saved that thought for later. And then I noodled on it and kept having conversations with you about it. And what it ultimately led to was this idea of the dial-a-pilot method being developed, which is the aviation education side of things, which is what we're so good at already. But then implementing that with briefings for the nervous flyer that they get to take into their hands and understand, okay, this is what I'm experiencing today. And it's okay for me to feel nervous. I'm human. Of course, I'm going to feel anxious at some point. I don't love the feeling of turbulence. We can't take that away from as the dial-a-pilot team, that feeling nor taking turbulence away. But turbulence is going to happen on flights. That's just the nature of the world, right? It's the nature of flying. But to be able to give people a plan and an actionable system that they can use when they're actually on board the airplane to know, first and foremost, turbulence is not going to cause an issue for the airplane. And I have control over myself as to to ensure my safety, being in your seat with your seatbelt fastened, things of that nature. But then having a further step that is modeled after what airline pilots do, professional athletes do, surgeons do, all of these folks that are, high performance in nature and high stakes in nature is really a better way to put that. Giving the nervous flyer that system to be able to go, okay, my feelings are going to exist. That's fine. But I have a plan for how to deal with them. I have a checklist that I go to. I have a QRC, a quick reference card, quick reference checklist. That's what we use in aviation. And I have a plan for leading into my flight and after my flight with pre-briefings, debriefings. If you ever watch anything about the Blue Angels are obsessed with debriefings. They do them for 3-4 hours a time.
Well, and I think that's the easy part to forget. Everybody spends a lot of time preparing for something. They don't spend a ton of time debriefing things because, you spend all this time getting ready for something. We do it, we move on to the next thing. And especially as a society where we're on this like instant gratification, it's hard to spend that time to review and assess something you've been through. So, in the airline and aviation industry as a whole, and the Blue Angels is a great example, really try to emphasize that debrief and that post, event review. And that's a great thing for our passengers and our community to be able to do that as well. So good point to bring up.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I really like in this is the importance of reflection. John C. Maxwell, New York Times bestselling author, he writes a lot of self-help books and leadership books and things like that. And one of the things that he talks about is the law of reflection. And the law of reflection is effectively being able to look back in the mirror, or I should say look back in the past, even over the last, 4 hours as it relates to the fear of flying. When you're talking about a fear of flying, it's a very short period of time that you're actually on that airplane, but a lot happens then. And it can be a traumatic experience if it's something that you don't have a plan to handle. And so John C. Maxwell says, hey, it's really important to look back, analyze your experience, and then reflect on it and be able to grow. And that's what that debriefing part of this dial-a-pilot method is going to be, is when we land, I hear a lot of nervous flyers say, well, landing actually doesn't make me nervous because we're almost done and that anxiety is almost gone. What we're going to implement here is we're going to take it one step further and we're going to talk about what you experienced and why you were safe and what happened on board that airplane. Maybe you hit a little bit of wake turbulence. You didn't know what that was. Hey, let's clarify that. Let's talk about what that was. So that way we're now going from a little bit of aviation education and okay, good luck, to aviation education, a plan going into it, a plan for you to use when you're actually on board and that anxiety starts to spike. We give you the exact systems that these professionals, mental health professionals, use to help you get back into a calm, controlled mind space. And then we do the debrief afterwards. And that's going to be the entire Dial-A-Pilot method. And we're not quite there yet. We're almost there. I would say that we're probably 30 days from launching that. But that is going to be the next evolution of the service. And then within that, one-on-one calls, if you need them on an ongoing basis where, hey, I haven't flown in 6 months, I just need a little bit of a refresh and a top off, then we'll have that available. But the one-on-one calls as they exist right now are probably going to change a little bit to be more aligned with our method so that we give you the entire system. You know exactly how to follow it. So this is a long-term solution rather than, a Band-Aid is probably not the exact right term, but rather than just it kind of makes me feel better temporarily. Right. We're giving you the system to make it happen instead of the patch.
Right. That's really important for people. That permanent change and getting people out in the air so they can go enjoy their lives. They can go to that wedding, go to that funeral. They can go enjoy that vacation that they've always put off because they can't get to somewhere without an airplane. It's really exciting to be able to help people through Dial-A-Pilot and experiencing those things of life that are just so important to keep us connected as a community. So appreciate that update on all the business. Anything else you want to share before we maybe get into some of these poll questions that we asked on the Instagram?
Yeah, great question. No, I think that pretty much encapsulates it, and more information will certainly be coming out on that and what the plan is and how we're going to actually administer that service. So stay tuned on that. I'm sure we'll do another podcast episode as we get closer to that release, talking about it more extensively. But it's an idea that I'm very, very excited about. So
nice. Real quick on the podcast, any specific vision for this podcast itself, like where that content can be expected over these next couple of months and episodes?
Yeah, I think what we'll plan to stick with right now is our once every other week format. I think that gives us the ability to still have our full professional careers, but then be able to do this in a manner that allows us to really put a solid episode together rather than just trying to scrape something together for the sake of releasing it. So I think that we'll keep that 2-week cadence. And furthermore, what I would really love to see is having nervous flyers that have been through our system come on and talk about their experience, because everybody here, most of the folks that are listening, if you're a nervous flyer, it may feel lonely to have that nervous flyer experience. Like you feel like you're the only one, when the reality is, you've heard me say this how many thousands of times at this point, but 40% of the US public reports having some level of fear of flying. And it's hard to identify when you just look somebody in the eye when you're on board the airplane, especially if you're feeling that anxiety yourself. And so I really have this vision for this podcast of being this place where nervous flyers can come and go, okay, I'm not alone. And it is okay. And, there is aviation education associated with the podcast. I'm hearing it from other people who have gone through this experience in the past. And then talking about, recent events, things that have happened, talking about air shows that you're involved with. And air shows are an amazing way to get people involved in aviation. So just sharing the experience that we've all had, more pilots, more air traffic controllers. One of my favorite episodes has been with Mike McCabe, the Chicago air traffic controller. So more things along those lines.
Yeah. Awesome.
Anything you'd like to see?
No, I love the guests, right? So if it's the nervous flyer community, some of the folks that have been through the Dial-A-Pilot community and some of those one-on-one calls, but then, folks like in the aviation professional world, the pilot team is so incredible with their, vast wealth of knowledge, but, maybe some aviation mechanics, those folks that are keeping us safe from the maintainer side of the house, and maybe someday like a dispatcher from an airline, and just getting that well-rounded view of not just the two individuals that are in the front of the airplane, but what that vast network of people that support the aircraft really looks like. Because I think a lot of aviation is this like mystical, like just fear of the unknown. Even like you have no idea how many people, when you get onto an airliner, have been involved with that flight to make it successful, make it supported. And it's not just those two individuals in the front and that team of flight attendants in the back, but there's just a really cool network of people that make a flight successful. And I think it'll be fun over the course of the next couple of months and years to be able to tap into that knowledge and have those individuals share their experiences as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, as you alluded to, the pilots are kind of the last line that shows up and, gets all the credit for taking the airplane from point A to point B, when in reality, there's hundreds of hands that touch an airplane before any specific flight attendants, maintainers, dispatchers, cleaners, ramp folks. I mean, everybody that's involved really has a big role to play. And so I would love to highlight those folks as well. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Christian. With that being said, you want to jump into these questions?
Yeah, we have to. It's the itching part. We got to get some of this stuff unpacked.
Absolutely. So this was kind of a fun one. My wife and I were flying out here to Traverse City, 2 days ago now. And we were talking about the armrests. I had gotten a middle seat and we were talking about the armrests. And I'm like, people don't really share those very well. Like, I don't know that people don't know that the middle seat tends to get or is supposed to get the armrest. It should. And we started talking about airplane pet peeves, and she had the idea of like, you need to put a poll up and address some of these. That would be a fun episode. And so we did. And it's an entertaining response.
It's an incredible, vast response category, from stinky food to bare feet. And I think the hottest take that we're going to finish on is the seat recline. I don't think we're going to be able to put a nail in that one today. Some of these other ones, I think, is a generally accepted social community here, we can probably all be on the same page with. The seat recline is going to be that contentious debate that may live on for a little while here.
It's so funny because when we were talking about this last night, I thought I had a really good solution for the seat recline, which we'll talk about. But it was contested amongst the cabin here.
Oh, yeah.
Even my opinion was. So with that being said, as you have likely heard me say, again, so many times, the opinions that we're about to share are not the opinions of the airline that I specifically work for. They are our opinions alone. And I do not speak on behalf of the airline. Just have to make sure I limit my liability there and make sure that this is completely Kyle's thoughts, not influenced by anybody else, and not speaking on behalf of anybody else.
That disclaimer also may be helpful for the listeners of the episode who may not agree with your opinion either.
That's a great point.
We'll see how that.
These are opinions, and that's it. So, Christian, why don't you take it away and give us some of the action we had on the social media poll.
All right. Well, here's some important things to know. There were some outliers here, and there were also some very consistent responses. I think the most consistent response, like I said, we'll end on seat recline. But until we get to that one, let's talk about some other maybe some pet peeves that we can all probably get behind. And let's just say that there's probably a few out there that ruin it for the masses. Yep. Is that a safe way to put it?
Fair.
Okay, cool. Things like people coughing. It's like, we're all humans. We got to do it. But there's a way to do that better than others. Just doing it out in the open as a full-blown cough versus maybe being polite and putting your hand in the crest of your arm and your elbow might be a better way to do that. But another one that people really hit on was consuming media. So, taking that phone call, listening to the Instagram videos. Like, look, we all get bored in the back of the airplane waiting for it to push back and get going. But watching Instagram videos out loud, listening to this podcast out loud, apparently frustrates people. And that seems like one of those social things we could all probably just get behind.
I'm on board with that one. It is important to keep your media to yourself because other people are listening to theirs. And, we got to just respect the space that we're all in. And especially when you're talking about an airliner, you're jamming 330 people in a tube that's 200 feet long. I mean, that's not a lot of space for people to spread out. So watching those social interactions and the social awareness becomes super important here. But that is one of my pet peeves as well, is when you got the TikTok videos going full loud and, it's, I understand, if some people forget headphones or whatever, that makes it a little bit more challenging. But, even sometimes I'll do that and like, I got to throw something up to my ear. I'll tuck the phone up to my ear. I'll watch the video, get my 60 seconds. Like, okay, I understand visually what's happening here. And then I'll tuck the phone up to my ear and get the sound piece of it, which makes me feel a little bit addicted to social media when I'm doing stuff like that. But that's my way of handling it. Like, I don't have my AirPods. I gotta hear it here.
So I think we can put a nail in this pet peeve. Bring a set of headphones. And if you don't have them, maybe just be polite and conscientious of those around you, because taking phone calls, lengthy phone calls, that one drives me nuts. We're sitting in an airplane waiting to unload and someone's carrying on a conversation. Look, I understand if it's your ride and they're coming to pick you up and you're giving them a quick brief on where you plan to walk out, that's perfectly fine. Carrying on a long conversation in the airplane that has nothing to do about aviation, maybe we just wait 10 minutes and take that out, outside of the airplane when we're back in the terminal area.
Fair.
But headphones seem to be a pretty consistent way to solve that problem and that pet peeve. Don't you think?
Great way to solve it.
Cool.
Great way to solve it.
Another consistent one, interestingly enough, has been regarding smells and fragrances.
Mm-hmm.
So not just stinky food, but like people wearing heavy fragrance. So for instance, this is an interesting point. I had never thought about this. I actually wore cologne most of my life, had, the smelly lotion thing. And my wife, when we got married, actually ended up developing a fragrance allergy.
Mm-hmm.
And so now our home, because of that, is entirely fragrance free. And I never thought twice about it. But now I don't wear any fragrance for that reason. I don't wear cologne. I have all fragrance free lotions and soaps and things in the house. So it's interesting that people, have this thought of, I wouldn't have ever thought about it as a medical side. There are people that like to really freshen up and smell good, but also on the other end of that spectrum is people just smelling bad in general, which is interesting, like the BO, kind of body odor thing. I think that's another one of those like socially acceptable things. Like maybe we just all shower.
Yeah.
Seems fair.
I have a funny story on that. When I was going through SkyWest training, when we were all interviewing, I shouldn't say interviewing, but we were introducing ourselves to be able to link up with a captain, because the captains would choose who their FOs were for the entirety of training. And they had us all go around the room and they'd say, hey, why would you be a good FO? Why should some captain pick you? And we had this guy named James that stands up and he goes, well, I'll shower every morning. And the entire room started busting up laughing because it's like, well, yeah, obviously. And he's like, no, seriously, I'm not going to smell.
Great attribute.
Like, that's a great call.
Yeah.
So it was hilarious. And I'm like, man, it's so important. And so what we talked about yesterday was the fragrances, very much so an important thing on the allergy side of things. I think they're also pretty inflammatory, those fragrances. And so for the folks that are really sensitive to those, obviously not something you want to be a party to. But here's what we came up with: is just smell neutral.
Smell neutral.
Smell neutral.
Don't smell bad. Don't smell great.
Do what you got to do.
Smell great's great, but apparently that could be damaging to some people. And obviously, like with my wife, for their allergy, it's actually a medical issue for some people. And I never thought about that.
Right.
So interesting. Another hot response on the smell department is food. That one, big one for me too, personally. Like if you're going to walk onto an airplane, to your point, a tin can that we're all trapped in at 30,000 feet, please don't bring a tuna sandwich.
Tuna's crazy.
Please don't bring, egg. I love eggs. I eat eggs every day. Don't bring egg related things onto an airplane. And honestly, I think that might be a problem with the airport food service too. Like the fact that we're even selling tuna sandwiches or things like that in an airport should just be outright illegal. But,
totally.
That's out of our control. Be a good steward and maybe don't buy that. Find something that maybe is a little bit more neutral, because smells a hot button topic on the poll responses here.
It is. I wish I would have looked this up ahead of time, but this just popped into my mind. For example, taste is diminished at altitude, where that's why airline food is saltier. I wonder if smell is tuned up because of that.
Oh, that's an
do the senses change on that?
Sounds like we need an ear, nose, throat specialist to come in at some point.
We need an ENT
to be a guest on the podcast. We can unpack that one a little bit more. Might be onto something here.
I agree, and the reason I bring that up is I love dried mangoes. Dried mangoes are fantastic. I eat them at home all the time. I eat them on the airplane. I bring these little packs that are a one timer. But every single time I open them in the flight deck when I'm flying, they smell more intrusive than they do when I'm at home. And I always wonder if the FO notices it, because mangoes have a pretty pungent smell. I mean, I think they smell good, but it's always one that I'm kind of like, whoa, that hit me harder than normal. So I wonder if there's any truth to that. I bet you somebody knows. If somebody knows, drop a comment on this.
Yeah, for sure.
And let us know, because that's kind of a fascinating thought.
Interesting. So I think we can put a nail in the pet peeve of the smell department, whether it's a fragrance, whether it's a body odor, whether it's a food. Be neutral.
And it's, all of this stuff always comes back to just be a good steward for your other humans, and just be, respectful and have respect for the fact that there's 300 other people on this airplane. But yeah. A lot of smell related things.
Big one. Okay, so getting, I think what we're going to do here is we're going to do one that we should all be on the same page for, and then we're going to do one, like we've alluded to, this seat recline thing that I don't think everybody's on the same page for. I cannot believe how many responses in this poll had to do with feet. Unreal.
A lot of feet.
Most of us have two. And their shoes. Most of us wear socks, shoes, this is also going to be my moment to put out this pitch to anybody that flies in an airplane. And I don't know if people think about this. Wear shoes in an airplane. If I live in flip-flops. Kyle will attest to this. I have flip-flops on my feet almost 24/7. And I don't ever wear flip-flops in an airplane in the event of emergency. You got to get out and you got to run. I mean, you look at some of these videos from emergency response, people running across a runway. Sometimes it's snowy and icy. Put shoes on when you go fly. Don't wear flip-flops. I love flip-flops. It's hard for me to even say that, but wear shoes. So let's unpack that the way we should be doing it. We should have a pair of socks on, a pair of shoes on. It's going to come back to basics 101. Wear socks, wear shoes. Apparently, there are way more people that are affected by shoes coming off during flight and unbelievably socks coming off on the airplane.
That one's crazy.
Buddy, that's out of control.
Yeah.
And that's one of those things where I think as an entire community we can get behind. And look, if there are a few listeners here that maybe tend to take their shoes off and their socks off, that's okay. Let's use this as a learning opportunity. And maybe let's all get behind the fact that this was a really hot button response in which everybody was united on. The answer was just don't do it.
Don't do it.
Keep your shoes on and keep your socks on.
That one's crazy.
Barefoot? Unreal.
Let me throw some questions at you on this one, because I can actually see an argument for the shoes coming off but not the socks. And in my thought process is this: on a long haul flight, like when I get on a long haul flight, if I'm going 12 hours, like my kicks are coming off, but they have the slippers for you. So I still have slippers, when I'm walking around on the airplane. Like, I'm not walking around barefoot by any means, like none of that. And I'm also not, I make sure that my shoes, I make sure that my shoes are not, just stinky.
Wildly potent.
Yeah, exactly. So I try to be a good steward of the things that I, own and wear. Now, there's some arguments to be made on either side of that. But I was shocked at how frequently this one came up in the poll.
It was the second most responded to thing in the poll outside of the recline.
Right. So I almost feel like there's got to be structure around when taking your shoes off is appropriate, because a lot of people do it.
I think in a domestic flight, keep those shoes on.
Yeah, keep your shoes on a domestic flight. Sub 3 hours, shoes, they have to
stay on.
Yeah.
I think that there's probably an argument to be made on the international point. Let's cover some sanitary baselines. If your shoes reek, maybe bring it back.
Need different shoes.
You probably just need different shoes.
It's different shoes in that case.
Bring some flying shoes, which are fresh and only brought on an airplane. I don't know. That's kind of crazy probably, but seems
not that
like
crazy.
Be a good steward.
Yeah.
That seems like a reasonable thing. I think in no defensible manner should the socks ever come off.
I agree.
If I see a toe on an airplane,
you're not happy.
I go back to my point on a safety condition. Wear shoes anyways. It's way safer for you as a passenger in the very unlikely event of an emergency. So for that reason, I think we should just start that trend of shouldn't be toes, because I don't want to see flip-flops on. It's a more dangerous habit to be working down anyways. If you bring shoes onto the airplane and you wear them and your socks come off and I see your toes, like, have you ever seen those videos online where, people are filming themselves and then the toes creep up in between?
Yeah,
like that's a prisonable offense in my opinion. But hey, I think this was one we could all easily get behind on the pet peeve thing.
Yeah. The socks are required to stay on. That's our opinion.
Absolutely.
The shoes are negotiable depending on the situation, depending on the length of the flight, depending on the integrity of the scent of your shoe.
Go back to that smells thing.
It comes back to the smells thing.
It's a big smells
thing.
A
lot of it's a smells thing. So
smell neutral.
Yeah. So as long as you keep it neutral, I personally am okay with your shoes coming off. And I'll even actually back it up a little bit. And even if it's a domestic flight, but you're being respectful about where your shoes are, you're keeping the socks on, the smell is not offensive. Like, do what you need to do. Stay comfortable on the airplane. I get it. There's a line though you can't cross. I understand that you disagree with that. Yeah, no toes.
Just no toes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna die on that hill.
That's fair.
No toes.
So I think that's my opinion. I also think I'm maybe a little bit less emotionally invested in this one as I am with the aisles or with the armrests.
Yeah, maybe before.
Seat.
Okay, let's do this because I was going to end on the recline. Let's give you the opportunity. So we had all these polls come in, and surprisingly, not one has been about the middle seat armrest. But my podcast guy over here is adamant this one comes up, and I think rightfully so. And we do a lot of standby flying in the airline world for those who are working there, right? You spend a lot of time getting that last seat in the airplane, which is inevitably always in the back and in the middle. So it's safe to say that if you're not flying an airplane, you're probably spending a lot of time in a middle seat. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So I think it's okay that you have a strong opinion about this one and seems socially acceptable. There's a couple of comedians that I've seen stints about the armrest. The Jim Jeffries comes out, or is it Jim Jeffries?
I think so.
That Australian comedian. He has a whole bit about that. That armrest for the middle seat. So why don't you give us your publicly defensible opinion on that armrest?
Totally, yeah. So the middle seat is, of course, not the most desirable seat in the house. Obviously, the window seat. So there's advantages to all seats. There have to be advantages to all seats. We really take a kind of an equal approach to flying as much as we can as far as the passenger comfort goes, right? Everybody kind of has to participate. Window seat, your benefit is you get the window, you get kind of control of the shade, which actually is another question that came up a lot. We got to talk about that one too. You get control of the window shade. You also get to lean up against the plastic on the side there, kind of rest your head.
Best nap spot.
Big advantage.
Yep.
Really nice feature of the middle of the window seat.
But you're stuck.
You're
trapped.
The aisle seat, you have unlimited access to the aisle. You can get up whenever you want. Of course, when the seatbelt sign is on and off, you have to respect it. But it gives you a lot of opportunity to move about.
And watch those knees for the cart.
Watch the elbows for the cart. The elbows become important.
Yep.
Now, the middle seat, you don't have a great advantage. But it is generally accepted that you get control of both armrests.
Yep.
So that doesn't mean that you got to fight the other guy for the armrest. Now, what I will say is this: if I'm running the back of the armrest, I'm running the stern section, and the other person wants to go the front section, I'm cool with that.
Totally acceptable.
But if I slide up and I decide to move my position, you got to respect it.
And you got to switch to the stern or tuck those elbows in.
Because I got priority here.
That's right.
Now,
that's fair.
If you're on the window seat or the aisle seat and you full arm the armrest,
it's an act of war.
It's bad.
It's an act of war.
It will actually frustrate me.
Yeah.
Now, granted, not really the kind of guy that says something about it, but I'll be frustrated about it and I'll just slowly start working my arm up there and just kind of slide in. Like, we both know the middle seat gets the armrest.
Yeah, that's fair because they don't have a big advantage.
Right. But what I will say is this: when I started bringing this up when we were having conversations about it the other day, is it actually was less commonly understood than I recognized that the middle seat gets the armrest. A lot of folks were saying, "What, really?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. So I think, a lot of people talk about using their platform for good and for change. This is my moment.
Keep your socks on. Yeah. Middle seat gets the armrest.
Middle seat gets the armrest. And it all comes back to just having that empathy for your fellow human and understanding like, hey, we all got a role to play here. If we run the row the way that the row is meant to be run, we're going to have a great flight. Everybody's going to understand, hey, window seat, don't get up and just walk across everybody. We'll all get up for you. We don't need to be doing the whole like tuck in thing. We're all, tall folks.
Yep.
We'll all get up for you. That's fine. That's the role that we accept when we choose the middle and the aisle seat.
Teamwork.
Yeah, it's teamwork. We understand the pros and cons of each seat here. So I think that that's an important thing to talk about. Now, the window shade, I think since we're kind of on the subject, important thing to bring up.
Yep.
Hot topic.
Yeah. This is probably the second hottest topic.
Yeah. In my mind, this is actually the hottest topic. I think the recline thing, I could make a pretty solid argument for, but the window shade thing is so opinion based. Here's my opinion and my opinion only. Above 10,000, I want it closed. Below 10,000, I want it open.
And how do we know, this is a great learning opportunity for those who don't and haven't heard this yet. How do we know we're crossing through 10,000 either direction?
2 chimes. Bing.
Double chime.
Bing. Double chime.
You'll see the flight attendants will get out of their seats too. That's their other reminder. So Kyle would like to propose ding, ding, flight attendants up, and then that window shade operation.
Unless, of course, there's a good reason to have it open. It's beautiful outside. Like I completely understand that argument to say, hey, it's just gorgeous. We're flying over the top of the clouds and the sunrise. Like, absolutely, by all means. Here's my thing, though, and this is where this really comes from. If the entire cabin is dark and there's one window shade open and it's just hitting you right in the face and you're trying to sleep, it ruins your sleep for the entire flight because it's just blasting you.
Yep.
So,
and generally, there's not that much interesting stuff to look at when you're at 30,000 feet.
Precisely. You're usually on top of a cloud layer. You can't really see much. There's not a lot of, definable features on the ground unless you're like over the Grand Canyon or something. Like, you can make any argument. Says, oh, well, yeah, that's a good point to open it. But leaving it open for the sake of leaving it open and you're getting blasted by it, that's one that I'll protest. But I do believe personally that the window seat has a duty to manage that shade responsibly and it's their duty and their duty alone. I don't think the middle or the aisle gets the opportunity to reach over and close it. You didn't get that seat.
I was going to say, you have that choice, right? If you want that control and you need to be that shade manager, take that window seat.
Right. I'm an aisle seat guy.
Really?
Yeah. But I have an opinion about the shade, but I would never bring it up to somebody that I'm not flying with. Like if you and I were flying and you were on the window, I'd be like, do you mind if we close it? And you would, protest
Probably.
it.
Probably.
But like if I'm flying with someone random, that's your responsibility. Sure. You have that on you, and that's fine. And I don't get a say in it because I didn't bid for that seat.
It's true. And I think the other interesting thing, tie it back into the fear of flying, that keeping it open below 10 is a good opportunity for our fellow passengers. We talk about being a good steward. That fear of flying, a lot of it comes from the unknown. Many people get into an airplane, they have no idea what's going on in the first place. The only thing that they can simply grasp onto is looking outside, looking out a window and being like, okay, we're moving, we're taxiing, we're almost landing. I always think about like when we come into land and my window shade manager, because I'm in a middle or an aisle seat, they don't open it below 10 for whatever reason. Maybe they're not thinking about it, but I'm a fellow pilot. I like to see what's going on. I like to look at the airport environment. So it's always funny where I'm like trying to guess when we're going to touch down on landing because I have no idea because the freaking window shade's closed.
Totally.
And I don't have a big fear of flying. So like for someone who is really nervous, that, 80% of what you perceive in the body comes from your visual and your eyes. And so that having that window shade open below 10 gives that nervous flyer or a fellow nervous flyer, if you're in the podcast here, gives them the ability to really grasp onto something. So I think it's important to, as it is to close it going through 10, open it coming back through 10 because it gives people that ability to really see what's going on out there.
Absolutely.
Maybe you're not nervous in the window shade, seat, but then your fellow and, passenger in the middle or in the aisle, maybe they are a nervous flyer and they really want to see what's going on. So.
Right. And landing is also pretty fun. Yeah. Like I love to watch the landing, see what's going on, see the movement of the flight controls, watch the approach, watch what we call the flare, which is when you transition from a descent phase into the holding the airplane right off the runway. Like I love to watch that as a pilot. I'm never judging the other pilots because I know sometimes you get a great landing and sometimes you don't get a great landing. Right. But it is always nice to, when you're walking off, like, nice landing. Like I saw that nice little last second adjustment. I saw the crosswind correction come out. So I love watching the landing as well. So mine is exclusively a light thing because it becomes so important as far as, you're getting hit in the face with light for 5 hours. It's not ideal. So you just, be mindful of what everybody else on the airplane is doing. It just kind of all comes back to that, I would argue. Yeah. Should we take it into the recline? If
I could recline this seat right now, I would do it just to really kick back for this conversation.
Oh, yeah.
This was easily the most responded to, and on both sides. It was, recline is acceptable. Recline is absolutely not acceptable. I mean, there were people in their responses that honestly felt reclining was as repulsive as it was to have feet, bare feet and toes out. And I was frankly pretty surprised by that.
Same.
I know people have opinions on their recline. I did not think that they were going to be as opinionated as, we shouldn't allow people to have bare feet out and we shouldn't let them recline. It's like, whoa, to me, that was a surprise.
That one caught me off guard too.
Yeah. So let's talk about that recline. And I think, we've done a really good job of putting a nail in most of these pet peeves. I don't think we're going to get there on this one.
Right.
I don't know that we are the spokesman for reclining, but we could definitely share some insight from those that we've talked to so far.
Totally. Here's my thought and what I propose as a solution here. Reclining a seat on an airplane, I think, is a very important part because those seats sit in a very vertical manner. It is a very upright seat, especially when it's in its full upright and locked position, which you're required to be in for takeoff and landing. You may not notice how upright it is when you initially sit down, but once you recline it, I'm a recliner, and then you come back up for takeoff and landing, for landing, I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing is so upright. And I play a lot of golf. I don't swing my driver 80% all the time. Sometimes I go 105% and my back hurts. So for me to sit in a super upright position the entire time hurts my back. It hurts my low back specifically. And so for me to be able to recline and take a little bit of that pressure off is a really advantageous thing for my comfort on board the airplane. In fact, the pilot seats actually have a lot of recline in them. And I sit pretty reclined because I actually feel like it gives me a better situational awareness of the cockpit. I feel like I could see more. So I actually sit kind of far away from the panel. compared to the traditional pilot that maybe sits a little bit closer and a little bit more upright. It gives me a better essay, and I feel like I make decisions in a more controlled and measured manner. Now, that's besides the point. Here's my thought. Every single seat on that airplane, with the exception of the first emergency exit row and the last line of seats, recline.
That's correct.
Don't pick those seats.
Yep.
Because unless you don't mind. If you don't mind and you don't mind having somebody recline in front of you and you're upright, that's fine. Sure. Pick that seat. It's great.
Probably takes a special person. I'm not on that team. I'm on team. I have to disclaim I am on team recline as well.
Yeah. So I actually don't mind if someone reclines in front of me because I think that's their right. You have that feature in your seat for a good reason, and it's calculated how much that seat comes back. That doesn't completely intrude on my space. Now, here's my proposal. Everybody reclines. Because if everybody's in the upright position, you got your standard amount of room. Yep. If everybody then reclines, you got your standard amount of room. But now you're more reclined a little bit. It's a little more comfortable. There's an argument to be made. Well, if I'm working on my computer, I want to be forward in my seat. Okay, that's fine. Fair. And I understand that, the recline then comes into your laptop area a little bit. Like that starts to get a little bit more challenging. I can absolutely understand the argument. But my thought process personally is to ensure the integrity of space. Everybody drops that recline back as soon as your wheel's off the ground and you can just throw that thing into the back.
I'm going to tell you right now.
I love this story.
I'm going to tell you right now. Oh, yeah, I could tell that story. I'm going to tell you right now, based on this poll, that's never going to happen.
I agree.
I think it's a great solution. It ain't happening.
Yeah. Everybody just has their own opinions and their own, values to what's important to them as far as whether that seat is upright or whether that seat's reclined. And I respect that. I'm going to recline my seat. And I encourage you to do the same.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. And my personal reason for doing it is like I tend to nap well on an airplane, so I use that opportunity to catch up on some rest. And I inevitably every single time, if I am in the upright position, my head falls forward, and so I'm always like scaring myself awake.
It's a safety issue.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm reclining back for that nap. I'm just gonna say it. So here's an interesting thing. Kyle and I were both interns at an airline when we had come out while still in school in North Dakota. And I asked a flight attendant this. I said, when are you, quote unquote, legally, because as you know, they're always saying, required to be in the upright and locked position. Well, at what point is it then not just acceptable, but legal then to kick it back? And so it actually is as soon as the wheels come off the ground of the runway, you are legally able to recline that seat. Now, this is talking to a few flight attendants. This is many years ago. This may have changed, but from what I knew it to be recently is as soon as those wheels leave, you can push that thing back. So Kyle alluded to a funny story when we were flying a lot in our internship. I may have pushed that one a little hard.
You were tight.
I used the actual G-force of the airplane once to I just held the seat button, and as soon as it pushed me back in my seat, that went back. Apparently the gentleman behind me didn't like that. He was reading a newspaper. He rolled it up and whacked me in the head with it while we were flying. It was pretty funny.
Yeah. And you now have an ethical duty in that point to just not respond to it.
Yeah.
My seat's back.
My seat back. I'm here now. I've decided to take the space.
So funny. Yeah. And I will say this too, of course, all of this stuff comes down to situational awareness. And if I turn around and there's a young mom behind me and she's got a 2-year-old in her lap and that 2-year-old's busy, I'm going to keep my seat back up because it's really going to impede on her ability to do what she needs to do and keep her kid in a situation, that they're happy. So I'll respect that. But I think as it comes back to so many of these different things, it's just have the situational awareness to know what's going on around you. And you have that right to recline your seat. It's built into the seat. Now, if you feel like it's going to impede on the person behind you, sure, don't do it. But I don't think it's reasonable for you to be upset with somebody in front of you for reclining their seat into the area that their seat reclines into. Right. Now they break the seat and recline it, 40 degrees. All right. Now
we got a problem.
Yeah. Now we got a little bit of an issue.
Yep.
But, I actually think that one's a little bit more black and white or cut and dry than I think probably the rest of the population does.
Yeah, it's very obvious that people have strong opinions about this one. I'll give you a couple of my personal thoughts on just being a good steward of a seat recline, and then we probably can wrap it up for today. But I think when you do that, if you're on team recline, just maybe be a little bit more conscientious of, when you do it, go slow. because, maybe the people behind you have that tray table. They got a cup of coffee. I'm a coffee guy. So if I'm on an airplane, I generally will have a cup of coffee on that tray table. The person in front of me swings that thing back and, forth, and they're hitting that thing hard in the post. I'm freaking out because I'm about to wear a cup of coffee. And so just be gentle and smooth, having that situational awareness and maybe some spatial awareness to say, I'm just going to go slow, thinking about the tray table that's happening behind me. That's one of my points. Another point is if you have the foresight and the spatial awareness to check, look behind you. Normally I'll look, and if I have an empty seat behind me and there's nobody there, I'm reclining back and forth all day. I don't really feel so bad. But, I look back and there's someone behind me, maybe that's when I'm thinking twice about reclining. To your point about maybe the pregnant mother, maybe you have someone that just has some other spatial challenges they need to, have more of that room. We're just going to be good stewards and good friends. So check to see if that seat's empty behind you. Go slow if you do. And maybe we'll see how people shake out. But I would be curious to keep hearing people's thoughts and feelings about the seat recline, because it was a pretty hot button item on our polls. Definitely the number one most responded to out of all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think we're going to get the entire world on board with one way or another on this. And I'm sure that some people are listening to it going, I can't believe they're saying that. I can't believe they reclined their seat, or vice versa. But honestly, so entertaining to read the submissions that were put in both on the social media poll and in our community. I threw a community chat in and said, hey, this is what I'm planning to do for the episode. And it just went crazy as far as the communications that came out about it. And actually there was one last thing that was brought up, and somebody said, hey, people that stand up as soon as the airplane gets to the gate and the seatbelt sign comes off. And somebody said, you know what? I actually want to defend that though, because as a nervous flyer, for me to put my feet on the ground and to be able to stand again in a stable environment really helps me settle my nerves back down. So that one, actually, I agree with that. I don't have a problem with people standing up as soon as the airplane gets to the gate, as long as you're not like rushing in front of people and trying to like cut people off because you're impatient. If you got a tight connection to make, hey, I got a tight connection to make, I got to go do your thing. You got to get there. I totally understand that. But one of our members brought up this great point that just says, hey, it just really helps me ground myself to be able to put my feet back on the ground and stand in a stable environment again. So again, I think all of this comes back to on almost every single one of these, except keeping your toes stowed. You got to keep your toes stowed.
Just keep the toes covered, man. Simple one.
It all comes back to like just having empathy and understanding for, your fellow human and what they're going through, and just having respect for one another, because we are in a tight space. And, as long as that respect continues and, goes a long way and everybody's got it for each other, flying is a great experience as far as understanding the roles of what you are in your seat, making sure that you're not making somebody else's flight uncomfortable or somebody else is making your flight uncomfortable. I think that if everybody gets on board with that, flying is a great experience, even when you're experiencing delays, because it's like, well, this isn't so bad. I'm just hanging out on an airplane and, I got my space. I'm doing my thing. All good.
Right. Just be a good human.
Be a good human. That's what it all comes down to. So anyways, Christian, thanks so much for taking the time. Can't wait to have you on more episodes. That ended up being a fantastically fun one to do. And we'll see you on the next episode of From the Flight Deck Podcast.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.